Are you an HR department of one, trying to figure out how to balance task and strategy while keeping up with changes in regulatory compliance? Do you need a fresh outlook on old topics? Then stop what you're doing, grab your coffee, and get ready to recharge. If you have people, you have problems to solve and things to do. Your host is Brenda, a 20-year human resource professional, ready to explore the HR industry with veterans of business and life with fresh eyes and new ideas. Learn about the rapidly evolving changes in employment law around the country, as well as new tactics to deploy and build engagement in your workforce. If you're looking to implement new practices to make your job easier in HR, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Best Practices in Human Resources podcast. I am excited that you guys are here. We got another awesome episode for you today, and we're going to get right into it. So if you are joining us for the very first time, welcome. Excited to have you here. We've got some really great info for you guys today. And if you are joining, if you're a returning listener and coming back, and if you're coming back time and time again, you guys are just the bomb. You guys are wonderful. You're awesome. I can't believe I just said you're the bomb, but that's okay. I really, truly, gratefully appreciate that you guys come back week after week and you listen to what's going on and you tune in, and it's just awesome to have you guys here. So I'm here to help share with you the what and the how in human resources, because I'm in the human business, and that means that you're managing a greater number of dynamics in the workplace to balance and find that common level ground. Most importantly, today we're going to be talking about employment law changes that are happening across the nation. I'm going to share with you later in the show where you can get access to some of these. Also, today's main topic, I've got a very special guest. Her name is Lisa Perez, and she's an HR professional. And you know what? We just decided to kind of share with each other and with you guys our backgrounds and really what our path was. And really what we're going to be talking about is really how we got to where we are today, and also the importance of being in that state of action, in that motion. She's a really awesome lady. I absolutely enjoyed talking to her, and we had a lot of fun doing it. I'm going to share with you some upcoming events and some announcements, and then lastly, I'm going to share with you how you can get best practices delivered directly to your inbox. So folks, before we go on, the information that is available through this podcast is for informational purposes only and not for the purpose of providing any form of legal advice. You should contact your attorney to obtain legal advice with respects to any particular issues that you're having. Now, if you don't have an employment attorney, go ahead and reach out to me, and I might be able to refer one to you through our friends over at Jackson Lewis. Okay, so employment law changes and headlines that are hitting the nation. So first off, there's an article out that the Department of Labor has clarified the application of the FFCRA leave to various return to school models. So please click that on. I'm sure you've got people who are dealing with the new school year, and that should give you some pretty good help. Also, the new DOL guidelines expands eligibility for the commissioned employees' overtime exemption as well. So we get some clarification on that. The Department of Labor has also issued new opinion letters on fluctuating workweek hour requirements, along with some other topics. So we've got some information there. Our Treasury Department has issued guidance on the payroll tax deferral that recently came out. So there's some good juicy information there. Quest Diagnostics has released a study that finds a 16-year high in positive workplace drug testing results for 2019. Also, the Sixth Circuit Court considers public employees off-the-clock social media posts in a First Amendment case. So that should be pretty interesting to see what that is going to roll out. And again, that's for public employees. Also, the USCIS has issued updated I-9 guidance due to the employment authorization document production delays that are going on. And navigating natural disasters during a pandemic. There's a really cool article on that. And what they're focusing in are some key considerations for your workforce. Also, the U.S. Department of Labor has issued some new guidance on remote work. Oh my gosh, remote work as well. Wasn't going to come out. All right, over in California, independent contractors are issued in California. There's a 2020 update. Also, do employers still need to provide time to vote in California? Click the link and you'll be able to find out. There's some additional information regarding San Mateo County, which has approved supplemental paid sick leave ordinance to assist employees impacted by COVID-19. California is also posed to enact a law requiring compensation data collection. So if you're in California, stay on top of that. Also, the Ninth Circuit Court gives California employers a break in defending the rest period claims. And then also there is an update for the California compliance deadline for harassment prevention training. It is still set and targeted for the 1st of January. Over in Indiana, Indiana holds at stage 4.5 of their reopening plan. Masks are still required, so there's some information there. And then Michigan's new executive order modifies the workers' stay-at-home requirements. Over in New Jersey, the New Jersey High Court has updated the state's arbitration case law to reflect modern business practices. Over in New York, they are recommending that you mark your calendars that the New York State sick leave law will go into effect on the 30th of September 2020. Also over in Puerto Rico, the health department has adopted additional measures to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, Washington State has instituted a supplemental paid sick leave requirement for food production workers. And that, my friends, is what we have for headlines here across the nation.
There are approximately 2,500 members of the U.S. Special Operations Community who transition out of active duty military service every single year. The Honor Foundation has dedicated its mission to serving these elite individuals on their journey to prepare for life once they take off the uniform. In the past few years, we've begun our own journey to reach this number, launching 3 physical campuses in San Diego, California, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and near Wilmington, North Carolina, along with a virtual campus to reach members of the community anywhere on the planet. I spent 26 years in the Special Operations community as a SEAL. I graduated from THF's program, I served on the board of directors, and now I'm proud to lead this organization into the future to continue assisting these transitioning service members and their families. Our dedicated team, our world-class program, and our incredible tribes of supporters are standing by to help THF alumni and future fellows, and are committed to providing the best possible support system and resources to better serve this community. Our vision for the Honor Foundation is clear: to impact every transitioning service member from the U.S. Special Operations Enterprise through our programs and support, and to be a catalyst for overhauling the entire DoD transition program. It's a big task, but the community deserves it, and we're driving full steam ahead to make this a reality. If you've been inspired with what the Honor Foundation's done in the last 5 years, I welcome you all to join us as we craft the next chapter in defining what it means to serve others with honor for life.
Gang, today we're going to take a little story time and out of the month. So this month we're really focusing in on, that constant being in motion and what that means in a time where everybody feels like they're stuck. I mean, like literally stuck. And today we've got an awesome guest. She is a HR pro. We've been playing in the same sandbox now for a long time. And we just recently met each other, but you know what? We both have a story to tell about how we got to where we are. And we thought, you know what? Oh, instead of recording all of this sad news and blah, why not just, take some time and just, talk to each other about and just explore how we got to where we are and how important it was to be in a constant state of action. So folks, welcome Lisa Perez. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I've been excited about this, and just fun to be featured on your show.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're here.
I'm honored.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So would you be so great as to just kind of share with everybody what it is that you do? Because we're both consultants,
yes,
but we do different things, which is really awesome.
Correct. So I'm a full service human resources consultant firm. I'm based in Miramar, Florida. So we're in the southern region. And we've been up and running for about 9 years now, just past the 9-year anniversary. And I have almost 30 years of HR experience. And what my newest initiative is, it's called the Complete Manager Makeover. And we show business owners and individual managers how to comply with human resources as well as communicate effectively with their employees, so that they reduce liability, communicate confidently and within the law, and improve employee engagement. So, but we're full service. We love to kind of, be extra bench strength for business owners, particularly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, love what I do.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I personally love being in where I am rather than owning the HR issue. Yes. And for some of our clients, we actually do that. We do help support if they don't have a human resources person. We are that bench strength for them, oftentimes supporting, an admin or a payroll person in the HR compliance piece. So, we'll help wherever needed. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you get started? Like, how did you know you wanted to be in HR?
I was so not that person. I did not leave high school and say, human resources, that's for me. I mean, I literally fell into it, Brenda. I started out of high school as a legal secretary. I'd always wanted to be an administrator. Mom was a legal secretary. She typed 101 words a minute, and I wanted to beat her one day.
Wow.
I didn't get that close. 92 is as far as I got. But I always knew I wanted to be in administration, just didn't know what that would morph into. And so Mom was a legal secretary, so I became a legal secretary. And I didn't like it as much. It was all about, dictation. I know I'm aging myself with that word, right?
That's all right. I'm right at the same age, so it's all good.
And so, it was just one-sided. I didn't really get the people interaction in that role that I did in HR. And so I kind of, got frustrated with the legal environment, left that, and just completely changed direction, and was looking at the newspaper. And a front desk clerk at a hotel was open. And I said, it's clerical, I get some people interaction. I could do that. And I applied, got the job, and then, realized I did not like that at all either. Because, my personality is, I want to be able to defend myself, right? And the customer was always right. And that's not my personality. So fortunately, an HR clerk position came open at that same hotel. I transferred in, and it was a marriage made in heaven. I found the paperwork side to challenge the mind, and the people side to challenge and allow me to engage with people. So ever since, that's when I knew I'd found my vocation. I'd found my love in work, but I don't feel like it's work. What about you? I mean, how did you get started in HR?
So like you, I always knew I wanted to be in business. And as a matter of fact, it was really funny. I remember when I was like 8 years old, my dad was a hospital administrator. He was a hospital administrator for 23 years, and he built up a weekend hospital system into like one of the top 3 in the tri-state area between Pennsylvania, New York, and Cleveland. And one of the top networks. Now they're in one of the biggest networks in that particular area. And so I remember when I was 8 years old, we were driving around somewhere, and we had just learned about, wills and stuff like that. I don't know how I learned about it, but I told him, I said, when you die, can you will me your job? I really wanted to be the president of the hospital and just fill in his shoes, right? So I kind of always had that drive. But like you, I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I knew I wanted to be, associated in business somehow. And, to me, it was exhilarating. It was thrilling. And I even remember at 8 years old, I enjoyed watching people have intellectual conversations. Mm-hmm. And I was exposed to a lot of that growing up. So I got into retail. And I found very quickly that retail is an environment where you learn everything about business. It's probably the best living case study you could probably have. The hard part about retail is that you don't have a life as a result of that.
Very true.
And I got tired of that. It wasn't until I was with my third Fortune 500 company, which was CarMax, and I was burnt out. I was fried. I didn't have really good leadership examples. I didn't have good leader mentors at that time. I was very terse. I was very caustic, and that some people are like, "Oh my God, are you even capable of that?" Yeah, I am. And I pull it out as a reserve unit. If I need to.
You don't want to see that one.
That skill comes in handy when you need to stand your ground sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but this is where I met my favorite mentor. He was our location general manager. His name was Tom. I wrote about him in my second book, Holy Cow, I Have to Talk to My Boss. And and we just formed a really good working relationship. And how he taught me to do, there was an opening for a position called a management assistant. So it, in some senses, is kind of like a generalist position, but there's no decision-making capabilities, but you're a significant influencer. And, you know, I came from a background where customer focus was exceptionally high. The expectation you had to deliver, huge. So he put me into that position, and what I transferred from my ability to give good quality customer service to our customers now transferred over into our employees, and he loved it. And all of a sudden he had somebody that was doing a job where they were approachable, and, you know, I got to know people better. And then I really found a lot of joy in helping people solve those problems. Like, I don't know where to go for this. This has been a really great big help. And it was kind of like you got to be a little bit of the hero, you know? So that was pretty cool. And that's when I said, I really want to do this. He goes, you don't need a college education for it. I'm like, yeah, you do. and at the time, the leadership in HR, they, you know, everybody was promoting, oh yeah, there's great opportunity. Everybody was saying you can't climb the ranks in HR in this company at that time. I don't know why, but nobody wanted to take me on. And that was a little disheartening. But
yeah, I think I read that somewhere on your website or your bio or something.
Yeah.
So
I had a lot of people say no, and I didn't accept no once. I went with that for about, out of the 8 years that I worked there, I pushed for that for 7 years. And yeah,
long time. That's a long time.
It was.
You know, your story with your dad is so similar. I didn't realize we had that in common as well, because it was at the age of 8, much like yourself, that I realized I wanted to be a business owner. My dad owned a glass shop in Brooklyn, New York, and I'd come to his shop after school every day, and you know, he'd be the babysitter, but we'd be there. And this one day, I'll never forget, he let me sit up on this really high, I mean, I could barely see above it, table, and he let me answer the phone that day. And that was like a big deal. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a business owner. And I think it's so important that people really look back at those formidable years and what is it that was innate in them, what drove them, what excited them, and never lose sight of that, you know, because I think that's when you're living in your truth. That's when you're living a life that you're meant to do. And, you know, you also mentioned something about being able to help people and get their problems solved. To me, that's what the resources in human resources is, right? We can help navigate the most difficult times, the most joyous times, just by being a resource and a place where they can come to find their answers. So we definitely have those things in common, for sure.
And you know, what I learned at CarMax is what honed they filed down all of my sharp edges for the most part, like the real bad ones. And, you know, like I said, I didn't really have anybody who, you know, I didn't have leaders that treated people with respect. I grew up in environments to where it was, if you don't like it, there's the door, don't let it hit in your butt on the way out. And I thought the rest of the world was like that. And I thought that's how you treat your employees, because that's how I was treated. Yeah. And that's how I saw other people being treated. And the one thing I didn't see, like with my dad until much later, is that my father was really, really good at setting expectations and holding his team accountable to that. And he was intimidating because of that, because few people knew how to do it back then. But now that I look back, I look back many years ago as to how valuable that was. And I've always been a proponent on holding people to expectations, because I think that's where you pull the human aspect into it.
Absolutely.
Because you treat people like adults, you treat people like human. Set the expectation, give them that guidance, give them that structure. And then when they do a good job, acknowledge them for it. But when they miss, you don't criticize them. You help them figure it out.
And do it better. Right. Exactly. Right. I'm of the same opinion, as I think we talked before. I'm on this mission, right? Transforming the human in human resources, because we've lost sight of that sometimes. We've become this, I need a warm body, or I'm, complacent, or I'm not setting the expectations. And I don't know even how to have those tough conversations that have to be had, but can still be had humanely. Right? That's an important thing and skill to accomplish. We don't, come out of, college knowing how to talk through the most difficult conversations, like laying someone off, telling them they're not doing the best in their positions, and how to transition that so that they, like I always say, the individual walks out of that interaction with their dignity still intact and motivated to do better. And, that's what human resources is. That's the human part, and I think we chatted, before. It's like some people don't have that, and it can be learned. I do believe that it can be learned. Some are going to be better at it than others, but it can be learned, and it's at every level of the human resources element and the managerial element. I always say you've got to learn how to manage people before you can lead them, because to me that managerial piece is the foundation. The leadership is that second level. And
too, is that not everybody, and I'm a perfect example of that. I think there was, I think I had chairman of the board up above really looking out for me, being able to, at the right time, plant those really good leaders in front of me. But not everybody gets that. Not everybody. One of the things that I always struggled with was I never had a very clear definition of what leadership really was. And I didn't get that fully until I actually minored in it. And then I learned it from an academic standpoint, but I remember while I was on this, journey, I was on my way back up from the cafeteria to my office, and I had this book in my hand that I bought, and it's just like trying to figure out what leadership book you should read is like, trying to figure out what Skittle you should eat first in a bag, right? Yeah. Holy cow. And so I found this book. I thought maybe this is a good one to start with to help me understand what really is leadership, right? And so we had our VP of operations in the elevator with me, and, second highest level you could get as far as, divisionally speaking.
Right.
And he looks over me, and I had just read the most atrocious passage. And it was, one of the things that says what makes a good leader is to make sure that you have a good secretary in place and that she does her job. And I was like, what the hell is this?
I was
right?
Ask what the book is, but now I'm not going to.
No, I couldn't even tell you. I threw it away. I actually threw it away. So I have it in my hand, and he looks at me, he goes, that's a really great book. And I said, have you read it? And he goes, no. Like, what the hell? So, it got very clear quickly.
Right.
With some of those influences that I had.
You're not the guy to train me.
Yeah. But that's the thing is that, I started figuring out, okay, so, talking out of both ends of your body, like he did, bad leadership, right? I put that in the no column. And, so it was like, so the more I paid attention, the more I started to form this understanding of both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting. I much like you. I really appreciate your authorship and looked at some of your books on your website and what have you. And I bow to you because I'm writing my first book.
Good for you.
You've got a couple, and it's titled much like the organization we just launched, The Complete Manager Makeover, Transforming the Human and Human Resources. And one of the chapters is just about that. It's learning from bad managers. We're so focused on just being in the muck of, oh my gosh, I hate this manager and they're doing this badly and they do this. And taking those emotions, even as we're going up our own journey, our career ladder, whether it's lateral or horizontal or vertical, remembering those things that made you feel that way, and then doing the opposite. We fail to remember that there's learning experiences in those tough times, not just, patience and maybe, getting some communication skills to manage those difficult conversations as we manage up with our managers and such. But it's so important that we kind of file those things and say, you know what, when I'm a manager, I am not going to do that. So there's a whole, chapter about all those missteps, and that's going to happen. Nobody's perfect, but certainly learning from those things is a great opportunity. Just as we're doing the academics, I'm always a proponent of being in the field that you prefer as well, so that you're applying that academic to the real world, because they do tend to be quite different, and using those opportunities that we think are so horrible as the learning experiences that they should be.
So you started as a legal secretary, but did you go and actually get a formal HR education?
Yeah, so I have 2 national certifications. My degree is in business administration, because I didn't know at that time in college what form that would take. So as I did my business administration degree, I was already in HR, so I had found it. But I never really wanted to specialize academically. I knew that there were certifications that I could add after school and things of that nature. So I took that route, a mix of a more general degree, and then the specialization came through the SHRM, SPHR, the HRCI, so many, it's like alphabet soup now with the certifications, but the SPHR with HRCI and the SCP with SHRM. Okay. So, and so that's where I kind of blossomed the HR specifics as I was going up those ranks throughout the 20 years in the field, if you will, and then kind of launched my business 9 years ago. So 30 years almost. I
was a little the opposite, because I was in that position of influence, and I was learning all these, like we were executing first, right? And of course, I executed. So we were decentralized. So every region had their own HR. So it was really interesting. It was centralized but decentralized. So, all of the HR momentum came out of the corporate office, but we had various regions. And so each region had an HR director and an HR manager. And then each location had, one of the 2 representatives. And so we always had like a point of contact that we'd split off, and it's like, these certain stores had this person and these certain stores had that person. And so we always, had access to that guidance. So it wasn't doing anything, independently.
Right.
So it was always, this is what we do. I remember one girl a long time ago said that every time she would get an application, when we had paper applications, that if it was somebody that she rejected, that she would take a red pen and she would drop it, and it would make a red mark on the application. And I'm listening to that, I'm like, God, that doesn't sound right, but I didn't know why,
Right.
And so after watching our HR director literally shed a whole layer of skin once he heard that, he explained to us, he said, you can't do that. You can't make, indelible marks on applications, because, it's bad. And it could also establish a pattern of, discrimination.
Correct.
And inadvertently. So when I got to the class, during my formal education, when I was going for my bachelor's degree and started, investing all my coursework, we started talking about patterns of discrimination and the difference between, adverse impact and adverse action. And so I was like, oh, I know this one.
Pick me.
And then it was and then I realized that, oh my God, I learned so much. I learned the how before I understood the why. And once those 2 married along the way, I mean, I literally had like 3 years of how, why, that just they just came together. And then all of a sudden it was just like, I really can do this.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it was great. And
mine was quite the opposite, in that I always asked why, So, and I was, fortunately, unlike maybe some of your experiences in corporate, I was with an organization that had about 216 hotels globally. And that's where I started my HR, my hospitality career that morphed into my HR career. And the organization was very much focused on succession planning and growing from within and things of that nature. And I took every bit of advantage of that. Some people didn't, focus on that. Now, while there could have been better mentors along the way, I kind of had to figure that out myself. But if you put it in front of me, I was taking it. If you said money was in the budget for a training program, I was giving you the registration form, right? So really owning your career. But fortunately, they did have some foundational things. So that's why I'm so passionate about succession planning. But, I was of the opinion, because I was already starting my scholastic academic career, well, it was like, we do this way, but why? Point me to the reason why we do this, because that's just me. I was inquisitive in that way and what have you. And that's how I've always chosen to train the HR people around me. The bench that I, whether it's a small office of one, like you talk about, or the office of 7 or 8 that I had to, direct, I wanted to make sure that they understood, this is how you do it, this is what you're doing, and here is why. And then read these 13 pages of the I-9 form and tell me what you learned. Right? The instructions. Have you ever, right? And so for me, it was tying in that why, and tell me what law tells me that I have to do this.
Yeah. And we have to challenge.
Yes, exactly. And so, throughout that career, I went from, the clerk to the manager to the senior director, or not senior, the director without the director title, senior HR manager, right? The one that you don't want to give a bonus, and then director. And then I went up to the corporate office as the director of recruitment and succession planning, and got the ability to see, much like you, the bigger picture, how each of the regions, relate to each other.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of people out there, those who are listening, there's a lot of folks out there that just want to know how to do something. But if you're going to be good at this job, you have to find that courage, and you have to find that modality of thinking to where you are questioning what's going on. Okay. So, and the best way to do that is help me understand. That is my favorite phrase in the whole wide world. I use that on people, and I don't even realize it. They're like, oh my God, don't use your HR voice on me. And I'm like, sorry. But I will anyway, because I don't get it. So bear with me. But that's the thing. It's like, help me understand, why do we want to do this, or what's promoting that? But at the same time, when you hear something, it's like, it's okay to turn around and say, okay, I hear what you're saying. I think I have a solution, but there's something that I want to look into, especially when you don't know all the answers. And it's creepy when you're in a seat of one, and I know you've experienced this.
Yes, I have.
And then, you're about ready to say, oh my God, the weight of this decision is on my shoulders. Right. I own this, right? Right. And if you may not have all of the answers, and you know it in your gut, you can feel it, and you're like, God, I'm pretty sure this is the right direction to go in, but I need that confirmation and I don't have it, but we have to move forward anyway. It's like, you just go to bed praying at night that you didn't screw it up.
Yeah.
Seriously. And then you pray for like the next 8-9 months until you're like, oh, phew, thank God. Right. But that's normal. That is totally normal for for being in HR. You got to expect that. And you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because CEOs and leaders, they go through the same thing. Maybe not necessarily on the HR and the law side or stuff like that. Right. They make a business decision, and there's no way in hell that they know that it's the right one.
Exactly.
Not all the time.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it, while a lot of it in HR can't be trial and error, right? We do have that little piece that says, okay, at some point I could make a mistake here, but you want to reduce that with the information you have, the laws that you have at your disposal. I mean, just look at what's happening in the workplace now. It is shifting quickly. And a decision you make today could very well be changed tomorrow, but you've already made the decision based on what you know today.
Right.
And I think that as long as you're guided by that, you know, I have all the information I have, I've investigated, I've looked at case, I am a case law person, having that legal background, I always look, okay, who's been sued for this? And what do I need to do differently? To use whatever information you have at your disposal and then make the best decision that you possibly can, and be confident in knowing that you've done and gathered the best information that you had at your disposal at that moment, you know. And then if there is a hiccup, then you learn from that and just continue to do it better. But I think that's one of the things I love about HR. It changes constantly. I think we mentioned this before when we chatted briefly, you know, there's never a same day. You're never complacent, you're never stagnant, and you're never caught up.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't expect to ever be caught up, you know, in this field. And I like that. I like that about it.
And what I also like about the field too, is that even though everything that you said, totally 100% true, what also doesn't happen is that stuff doesn't change overnight either. Right. So our laws don't change. I mean, really, other than the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, when was the last major HR employment law that was enacted that you can recall off the top of your head?
Enacted or changed? Because
enacted.
ACA probably. Or
what was before that?
Hello, I didn't know this was going to be a history lesson. ADA maybe. I mean,
Family Medical Leave Act.
Yeah, FMLA.
That was like 2000, early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we do have, you know, have
I went
amendments.
back to 1990 with that one, ADA.
yeah, exactly. It was ADA before that. But I mean, but that's what I'm saying is like, you know, we don't have these major rollouts. I mean, and when we do, we have this process that we go through, and, you know, just like what we've been experiencing with COVID, and, you know, the Families First Response Act, the new emergency paid sick leave, the, you know, the new EMFLA, we just all look at each other and go, okay, we have no freaking idea what the hell to do.
Nor do
we have nothing to go on. And it's just, you know, bear with us for a while because nobody knows the answers, because our government loves to put laws out there and then we figure out how to do it.
And not figure out how to do it. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
And then it'll get litigated. It's some point in time we'll get litigation in and then
we'll get clarity.
And then we'll have some solid answers, and then it'll end in December. So yay, woo. So and the litigation will keep going on. But I mean, but that's how it works. Right. Yeah. That's how it works. It's challenging and it's fun when you go through that. It's also extremely frustrating because anybody who's in HR, for the most part, these types of things ride our call to action button hard. Yeah. They really do. And when we see that something needs to be done, we feel like, oh my God, we got to jump on and do it. When we know our I-9s are screwed up, it's like, oh my God, we're just at risk of all this money and we just got to get it done. Yeah. That's what happens when all of a sudden our mindset shifts and we are now derailed from the direction of the organization. So it's up to us to figure out, okay, how do we get what needs to be done on the docket that aligns with corporate whatever the leaders
the mission
objectives are. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think that's where that proverbial seat at the table comes from, and really leading the charge for your organization that says this is important to the overall mission, but being able to articulate why and how and affect that bottom line, that the other sides always talk about, there is no other side. We're all on the same mission to make a successful organization, and the human resources, the people resources are the most important thing. I used to do a training and I'd say, all you managers are here today. Who's doing the work? Right. You're not as, indisposable as you think, because the work is still getting done. So let's talk about those people. And so whatever law comes out, whatever, mandate, regulation, it's about really being able to articulate why this is important, how it relates to the overall mission, of what the organization achieves, because it's through their human resources, their people resources, that those things are achieved, period. So.
And that's the high level thinking, right? Mm-hmm. But there's still the daily, I hate to say it, but grunt work that needs to be done.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
And
For sure.
people who are in that seat of one or seat of few,
Right.
That's a hard balance to strike. That's a very hard balance to strike.
Hmm. Hmm. And especially if they don't hold that seat. Oftentimes that office of one doesn't have that C-suite level responsibility, right? They're more that day-to-day, let's keep things afloat, let's keep employees happy and what have you. And it's no less important than that C-suite. In fact, it's more important because, again, to me, you're dealing with the human resources. You're dealing with the people of the business. And, finding a way to influence that C-suite in what it is you're doing, how it, adds to the bottom line is important, even for that person, that office of one. And I love, those times that I was that office of one, I'd find people to delegate to, and if I didn't find them, then I'd create groups of people, like committees. Hey, I've got a committee, let's start this committee. And being successful at gathering bench strength of high performers, people who wanted to be involved, people who didn't just want to do what they were hired to do, and bring their expertise and knowledge and experience to the table. That's where I expanded my office of one, team member relations committees, TMC, we call it, and safety committees and all that kind of thing. Find those few that just want to do a little bit more and expand that bench strength through them,
Yeah. I was in a situation to where the company that I was employed with wanted to expand their employee headcount significantly. And I had put together a plan. I said, okay, so if we're going to do that. And then it was like the plan just wasn't really acknowledged. And it's like we have systems that don't talk to each other, which we've got a ton of manual work, and that's not going to bode very well. And by the way, none of the information that's in the systems is 100% accurate. Right, you took the words right out of your mouth. You knew exactly where I was going with that, didn't you?
Yeah.
That is the voice of experience right there. And but you know what? That leader pushed her agenda forward, and it's just like I can't match your agenda because it's broken. You've never had anybody in this position that knows what to do and what to go on, and I eventually just like, this isn't working. And absolutely. And just, you had to move forward because it's like, I can't help you if you don't want to be helped. It's like you brought me in because of my knowledge, but yet you're not letting me utilize it. At that point, I had to make that decision. What do I do? And, and so I made the right decision. I know I made the right decision for me. And they, eventually wound up bringing somebody in that can meet their need now, not their need future. They're not ready to do that. Okay, that's fine,
Right.
It just means it wasn't the right experience for me, and it led to something else better. So
exactly. And I think that's those things are important. Is knowing when I think that the word of the year is pivot. Knowing when to pivot and knowing when you're beating a dead horse. Because I'm that person. I will ask you and I will frame it 5 different ways to make you see, because maybe I'm not explaining it in the way that you need to hear it. And that's why I love, DISC, that it's who am I talking to? What do they need to hear so I can sell this a little bit more effectively? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but using whatever skills and tools and tricks and tips, that you can to make them see how important this is and what needs to happen and why, right? Because they'll, well, why do we need to do this? Like I always ask, why? So those things are important, especially when you're that office of one HR person.
Yeah. And I love what you talk about with DISC, because I agree. I mean, to me, communication is just absolutely huge. And, I had a really great working relationship with a CEO, and we would meet all the time. And, I felt strongly that we were very much on the same page. And I'm very flexible, because the way I look at it is like, here's your margin, right? And right in the middle is your line of naughty and nice. it's your line of delineation as to when you're legal and illegal, right? Or unlawful, pardon me, unlawful.
Right.
And it's like, so, we'd run into a situation and I'd hold my hands up. I said, how close do you want to be to the middle? and because I think that's a solid way of, working decision. Not everything has to be uber conservative.
Right.
And, leaders, especially men, are going to take risk.
Yes.
So, as an HR professional and in a field to where majority of us are women, and women don't take risks very often like that. That is a disconnect right there. Right. So, being able to find that, but when it came time to working with other people and say, okay, so let's have a conversation about this. They're like, I remember I had one person tell me, she was a finance head honcho, and she said, you have got to stop talking to us like we're corporate, we're a small business, and we don't work that way. And I said, so you're telling me you don't believe in communicating when you're the one person who will complain the first when somebody doesn't communicate with you? That is a load of crap. And that's exactly what I said to her. I said, if you don't want to communicate, then expect hell coming your way. I'm not reining it in. I'm just telling you, you're making your job harder because I'm stepping up to the line to help you figure this thing out. You don't want to jump in. That now no longer is my problem. So good luck with it.
Right. And when it snowballs, don't.
Oh no, I'll be here. But let me tell you, if it snowballs, grab your shovel, because I'm not digging you out. You're going to work on it yourself. Right, exactly. Yeah, you're going to. Yeah, and it's not to be, rude or snarky or nasty, or this is now going to be listed as explicit or shitty, but it's just sorry, HR neutral moment. But it's just like, I can't always sit here and convince you why you should do something. We just have to now do, because we're to that point.
Yeah. And, I know that in times of those, situations where, you're telling someone why it's so important, how it would be more effective, especially with communication, expectations, setting that expectation, but it takes so long and this and that. Well, how much longer does it take you to fix a mistake because you didn't set up the expectation first, right? The proverbial train the trainer, right? It's up to you. You want either an effectively working machine because you communicate thoroughly and throughout the before, the during, and the after, or you do all the after, but you're spending just as much time to clean it up, you know? So getting that buy-in, it's a wonder that people don't see the importance of that and how much more effective their operations, their departments, their offices of one, would be, even in that office of one, setting up your own expectations and leaving some room for, some wiggle room is critical. Sometimes we fail to even communicate to ourselves. What's the expectation of this role, responsibility, this project, this new regulation, and how do I manage that throughout its process,
And I love how you say that. You're absolutely right. Leaders who are not tuned in to this don't communicate with themselves, and they set themselves up for some massive failure, thinking that they're doing the right thing or that they're just skirting the issue for a while because they're just not ready to deal with it. And I respect that. I respect that leaders aren't prepared to do battle against a Grendel. I totally respect that. And they have to choose their battle because they're battling so many.
Yes.
But the same person a little while ago, they had an employee who was less than stellar. They knew it. I knew it. And I wasn't that person. I wasn't that HR professional that said, you need to fire this person.
Right.
Because they're doing this. I was, what do you want to do? Because this is your teammate. This is your responsibility. This is your department. You own this problem. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you figure out, how do we do it? Right. So after 14 months of very bad performance, constantly being told by one of the managers that, oh yeah, I've been documenting everything. Because I told him, I said, make sure you document everything.
He knows that they know, but does the file know it?
You document everything. You take notes on the conversation that you've had, blah, 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 blah. We get to the point 14 months later to where we made some discoveries about the individual. And I said, okay, I need all of the notes that you've been taking. And we're going to sit down and we're going to figure out what we're going to do, because this person has been, disciplined long enough. A decision needs to be made. Otherwise, you're going to continue feeling the same burn. I got a page and a half of notes that weren't even notes. And that woman came after me and she's like, you need to tell the manager, it was her direct report, that blah, 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 blah. They need to recreate all this and that they should be taking better notes. I said, first off, that is your problem. That is your teammate. And you guys have been pushing against this action for 14 months when I told you we should probably consider it now. The other piece is that you have backed that person up saying that person is taking notes and making documentation. We're all squared away. Clearly, you didn't know that. So that means that the game has now changed. It doesn't mean that we can't terminate that individual. But what you're wanting me to do, not my responsibility. That is your teammate, and you need to own that.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I'm just full of all these, nuggets and quotes and stuff. But if you do not inspect what you expect,
yes,
right? We've heard that your expectations won't be met. I'm not saying micromanage. There's no room for that either.
No.
Someone truly needs to be because of a learning process or something that's so detailed or what have you. But I think, that accountability, it goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about, ensuring that you're holding people accountable to the things that you're giving them to do, that you're tasking them with, equipping them to do so, right? The skills, here's the form, here's a sample, here's the training, whatever it is, only creates better success. And so, but ultimately you've got to inspect that. Hey, show me, and if somebody was responsible for doing that, they dropped their own ball, and that's what weakens an organization, that failure to hold people accountable to the tasks, the assignments, the, whatever it is that you give them. So
speaking of accountability, so here we go. Here's an ugly side here's an eating crow side of our conversation today.
Okay.
What in your history? So when you look back at your career, because we've all made mistakes and there's nothing wrong with making mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I told you were eating crow. Go get your salt and pepper shake.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I got an arsenal, but one comes to mind.
What if you could go back and not change anything, but what would you say was a mistake that you made?
Yeah.
And what was like your greatest lesson from it?
Oh yeah, this is a great one. And I don't shy away from talking about it because it is the realization that while I thought I was being friendly and approachable and this great HR person, the reality was that's not how I was being seen.
Yes.
Okay. And this is where DISC comes into my life. This is where I was able to see myself as others see me and not as I see myself. And that was a huge lesson. And the lesson was, I had this, organization. I was the HR director. Can I speak to where that was and everything? Yeah, you said Carmack. So I was the HR director at the Fontainebleau under the Hilton flag in the early part of the 20th century. It sounds really weird, right?
21st century. 21st. We're not that old.
Yeah, 21st century.
20th century. They had just discovered like Buck Rogers and Butnick.
Hey, I know who that person is. And so it was, 2000, 2001, 2003, and all that kind of stuff. And, I just viewed myself, I knew that the employees came to the department for help and research, and we did all the tech stuff right. We solved their problems, initiated, implemented. This is, an organization. I did another committee and we won awards and all this bunch of stuff. So those people like me, but the broader picture was that I was not seen as approachable as I thought I was. And it was devastating. It was devastating. And it's the employee opinion survey, for God's sake.
Oh my God.
So you expect this high rank, this high number. And yes, I did have some, there were some people who I was genuine and this and that, and they saw that. And I'm talking about like the comments and stuff like that. But there was a big part of that did not see me as this approachable person that I thought I was coming across as. And I'm a high D personality, right? What are we doing? How are we doing it? When are we getting it done? Get out of my way if you're not part of my mission, And that was the person, a lot of people, not most, but a lot of people were seeing that pull that number down. And so it was a really good look in the mirror lesson for me to say, okay, I need to change this. And then through another business association, I became aware of DISC. And it was that really opened my eyes to all of those things and how I could change myself, because you can't change others,
No.
to be more what they needed to see, right? Pull on those personality traits that they needed to see, that I needed to exude in those moments. Yes, there's a time for being that high, bull in a china shop, personality. Well, never that, but I've been called a warm and fuzzy brick after that,
Warm and fuzzy brick.
Warm and fuzzy brick. And so learning that lesson was probably the best lesson in my life, because it really spawned my interest in connecting with people, making sure I'm speaking their language, and not just it's what you say and how you say it, but it's who you're saying it to. Is that additional level that's so important. So that was probably my biggest aha moment, mistake moment. And in future years, the scores did go up. So I was aware, I looked in the mirror, it was tough and hard, but transforming myself first was the beginning of that improvement. So that would be mine. So what's yours?
Yeah, see, I know if I ask you a question, it's going to come back. I have to answer the same question.
You got to be careful.
So I was ready for it. But no, but I love that. And, that's a level of self-accountability right there.
Yeah.
Probably one of the things that for me was a huge mistake is, I had some similar feedback like that. But really the big thing that I had to do for myself was I found myself in this position twice. And it was kind of like the second time that it happened, it is when I had my aha moment on this. And when I did it, that's when I decided to separate from the organization for a couple of reasons. And then something else happened, and then I decided to separate a hell of a lot faster after that. Yeah. But what it was is that I love to collaborate. I'm a big collaborator. For somebody like you, I'm a high D, but I'm also a high I, and they're almost equal in DISC. They like, depending on my situation, it's either my high I will come out, which is an influencer, or my high D, which is that driver or that director, will come out. Right.
Right.
So, but then I use them together simultaneously. So I drive influence, and that's just innate. But when I was in a position before, when I took it, it's because of the job that I took, the language that I was using at the time, how I communicate was a high S.
Mm-hmm.
So I was more systems focused because that was the role that I was in. So in that role, I was learning a lot of really good stuff. I was going to school, and I was working with people that I counted on to teach me how to do stuff, but they were very passive aggressive. And I had these three women, they kept changing the rules. And it was just slight enough to where I was so overwhelmed with everything that I was trying to learn that the changes that they were making went so unnoticed that I thought it was me. And I am one to hold myself accountable. I don't have a problem looking in the mirror and saying, Brenda, you're screwing this up, right? I really don't. And that was probably my biggest personal hurdle I overcame many years ago, is don't be shy on holding yourself accountable on something.
Right. Look in the mirror.
Rather you hold yourself accountable than somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I had held myself too accountable, to the point where I was absorbing all of the blame because I didn't see what was going on.
Right.
And it was manipulative, and it was preying on, I'm a little bit of a gullible person. I was very gullible as a kid growing up. I was that person who grew up and it was like, don't do as you see, do as I say.
Right.
And so that's, I was a major rule follower, and I'm not a rule follower, but I'm not afraid to challenge the rule and help me understand why we're doing this.
Right.
So then the second time it happened, I was in a position of authority, and the rules kind of slightly changed a little bit. And I recognized it for what it was when I saw it, because I remember how I felt.
Right.
And I just felt like that small, very, very tiny, felt like I couldn't do the job. And it's like, bull, you can do this job. You are doing the job. You just have an element working against you. What is it? And then when it clicked as to what it was, that's when I realized that the very same people who brought me into the organization are the very same people who are the most toxic.
Mm.
And again, passive aggressive, nice to my face, stabbing behind the back, slightly changing the rules and then putting the blame on me. And my willingness to accept responsibility for my actions played against me.
Right. Absolutely. That's a big one. Yeah, those aha moments. But they all start with that ability to look in the mirror, right? What part of this am I playing? Because like I always say, you can't change anyone else. You can only change yourself. So
Yep.
I would imagine that helped you with a lot more peripheral vision they're going after,
Yes, it did.
Thereafter. So
yeah. And then the other thing is that honestly, it launched an unexpected journey for me. And do you listen to Steve Harvey at all?
yes, on occasion.
Love Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have to figure out who's going to be on the show for the 100th episode. If there was any way that I could make Steve Harvey be on the show, it'd be awesome.
Awesome.
That isn't going to happen. I don't know if that'll happen. And I don't want to.
You got to put that out there to the universe.
I know. I don't want to shut myself off. But anyways, yeah, I'd love it.
You never know who's somebody who might know.
I know. I'm after Mike Rowe too, by the way. But anyway, we're derailing here. But Steve Harvey's wonderful. If you ever get a chance to listen to any of Steve Harvey's inspirational stuff, highly recommend to do it because he's spot on. Mm. And one of the things that Steve, when I left those situations where I wasn't feeling my best, and I would say in the last couple of years, even before I started this podcast, I thought I was listening to him, and he always talks about living in your gift. And, if you're not focused in on your gift and doing what you're good at innately, you are going to be miserable. And that's where I started. I went, all right, so what the hell are my gifts? And there's multiple ones. Everybody's got more than one. But what is the one thing? And I got really clear on what that was. And once I did that, I knew what direction I needed to go in. And I've never regretted it. Not one single minute have I looked back and say, dang, I wish I, right? And it was more like, wow, I wish I had the money. But money was ridiculously stupid good. But you know what? The gift is actually what's going to, bring me to where it is that I need to go next. And you have to live in your gift. Mm-hmm. And you have to live in your gift in this field. Because if you don't, you're just going to be miserable.
You'll be fighting your own vocation. I'm so thankful that I always say I fell into HR, and I'm a woman of faith. I know where it really came from, but I fell into HR and I just loved it ever since. I really have enjoyed it. So
first time I heard somebody talk about HR, I went, no, because it was all benefits. That's all he did was work in benefits. I'm like, oh my God, that would just suck.
Personnel.
Pull my hair out now. And it wasn't until I got into that seat at CarMax that really, launched it for me. But
no, it's I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I definitely found something that I love to do. So
if you could give anybody who's listening a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think I said it before, find what it is that is truly deeply innate to who you are at your core and what you love at your core. And oftentimes you can look back at those formidable years and find that. Do what you love to do and then find a way to get paid for it. You've heard that before. I truly believe that. And if it's something, if you don't like HR, get out. Mm-hmm. Go find what you love to do. Pivot. Go into a new vacation, but do what you innately love to do, because then you're living in your truth and who you're supposed to be, what you're meant to do here, and you'll love life day to day. Find what you love to do. Just figure it out.
I would tack on that if there's an element of HR that you find interesting, find the path that gets you to a trajectory where you can continue to enjoy doing that.
Correct. Yes. And I think that's another great thing about HR is it's so broad. If you love numbers, then maybe benefits administration and wage and hour and compensation and benefits is your thing within the bigger picture. I tried specialization, in that journey of my HR career. But I'm a generalist at heart. I like my hands in all the pots. I want to do benefits and admin and workers' comp and employee relations and the fun stuff, the picnic party poster stuff we used to do way back then. I want that. I want to be able to do it all. So I am a generalist at heart, but there could be something that, is a smaller lane within the bigger picture that you would equally as much enjoy. So good point. Good point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the generalist part for a long time, but like I said, I'm now to a point where I don't want to own the HR function. I don't want to own the HR problem, but I really do help like helping people figure out how they can be better at owning the function. Right. And owning the problem. That's why I love working with the Next Gen Women in HR Facebook group. That's why I love having the HR coaching sessions that I have, and and building these programs and working with leaders to help them, really get past what feels like a hurdle. Right. And most of the times they're very simple answers. It's like, well, I understand you're frustrated, but why don't you just simply ask the person what's going on? Just a simple question, and you get to be the hero again for something like that. Right. And I like that part. It's not, the hero piece doesn't feed my ego. What it is that I like being that hero because I watch somebody change into being something that they didn't think they were capable of doing before. Right. That's powerful. Right. Yes. And they get excited about that stuff. And then when you see people getting excited about life again, holy cow. Yeah. How lucky are you to be part of that journey? Yeah, for sure. And I love that. That you can make that. It's a positive impact. Yeah, for sure. I think some of the best times of my career was being able to mentor others within my organization and externally as well. I have many that are still, wonderful colleagues and have become friends, and even people that, I had to lay off after 9/11 and they still reach out and say, you know what, I stay connected with you because when you found yourself in a difficult position to communicate this, you did so well, and you gave us tools to do something thereafter. And those are moments that we have an impact in people's lives on a regular basis. And I would much rather be someone thought of as having a positive impact than a negative one, even when something negative like a layoff or a furlough or whatever those things have to occur, because that is it. That's nobody else's fault, but how you do that is important and makes a big impact on people's lives. Yeah. And I think once you focus on the word human and you put human back into what we do, yes. You know what? That is amazing. Yes. When you figure out how to treat somebody like a human during a really crappy time, like layoffs and disappointing news and stuff like that. I mean, that's something else. That's not something that a lot of people experience on a regular basis. And when they're the recipient of that, that really is something special. And that's my mission, to really, really make sure that no matter what the conversation, employees, people, individuals, whoever's having this conversation with a manager of any kind of person, whether it's a business owner, an HR person, a line level manager, an entry level, an executive, those conversations are had so that they walk out of that interaction with their dignity intact. That's the human in human resources. Love it. Well, this is great. So if people wanted to find you, how can they find you? So I think the best way right now is to go to thecompletemanagermakeover.com. That's the mission, right, of where we're trying to transform the human and change these statistics of bad managers. And then I'm here in Miramar, Florida. My email is lisa@hblresources.com. That's the parent company to the Complete Manager Makeover. And those are two great ways to kind of reach out and find us. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time. This has been great. Likewise. We'll have to do it again. Absolutely. I enjoyed our conversation and learning more about you as well. Aw. Now, if you've been listening to the show for some time, or if you participated in the Next Gen Women in HR Facebook, you've heard me say at some point that you need to take care of yourself first in order for you to be able to take care of everything else. And in this month, I have kicked off a new feature as part of the show, and it's going to be a growing segment on what you can do to kind of help you take on new things that are going to help you take care of yourself. And it could be from anything from, using a particular product that I found that helps out to performing yoga, to just figuring out how to make time to get out, to, focusing on recovery, which is what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, and bring in some subject matter experts. And the reason being is that with everything that's going on, all these crazy stressors, and this year is just jacked, you have to focus in on you in order to focus in on everything else. And I'll be honest with you, I had not done a good job of that for a very long time. And once I started focusing in on my well-being for just a little bit out of the day, not a lot, but a little bit out of the day, I have found that my overall well-being is better. I've been able to manage my stress, manage my own personal concerns about what's been going on, and actually find that freedom for me in order to be more effective at everything that I'm doing. And ultimately what it's doing is that I'm optimizing everything. And the big thing that I've been focusing on lately has been optimizing my sleep. That's been one of the very first steps, because when I'm tired, I eat bad. When I'm tired, I don't make great decisions about moving, money, sometimes even business, right? And like I get foggy brained and I forget stuff. So that's part of the reason why I'm just bringing in this element of taking care of yourself in this wellness and this health segment, simply because it is so critical that you just do, and you don't have to do like mega big things. You don't have to completely rearrange your life. Just take small steps forward. And part of the sleep thing is directly connected to recovery. And I know I mentioned this in the last podcast, but I want to keep on talking about this, because every day that goes on where I'm capable of recovering, I'm learning more about how I feel and about how I'm able to deal with the following day. I'm able to manage my workload a little bit better. I'm okay making, decisions to push something back that may not necessarily make sense and address the priorities. And to be honest with you, if you look at, I actually manage my tasks. I don't manage my time. You'll see that I actually have a couple of different boxes on a grid. And then I have a box called necessary business tasks. And then below that I have fun tasks. So, because I want to do the fun stuff first. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't like doing all the required stuff first. That's not me. I like doing the fun stuff, or whatever it is that I deem fun. And sometimes doing the required stuff is fun for me. But to be honest with you, I'd much rather have fun doing what I do and getting paid well for it. But I have to also do the necessary stuff to get paid even more or better. So, there's a payoff. There's a benefit and a cost to it, right? But anyway, I've been learning a lot about recovery and what that means. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook on either one of my public pages, you'll see that I actually posted something this week on recovery. And what I did is I have a Whoop now. And if you don't know what a Whoop is actually a wearable. It is one of the most technologically advanced wearables that are out there. It actually tells you what is going on with your body. It doesn't manage your steps. It really analyzes the best that I've seen so far. I've been a Garmin fan for a long time, but it really does a phenomenal job of understanding what your sleep cycles are, and there's 4 of them. It tells you what you need to do in order to recover, right? It tells you what your percentage is at. And it's just amazing. And what I started doing was I started combining CBD gummies with my recovery. And as I started taking a CBD gummy before I go to bed at night, or when I get into I'm about ready to wind down for the day, what I've seen an increase in my percentage to recovery. Now, to be honest with you, I have not really brought up the level of physical exertion that I probably should. Right now, I'm just focusing in on my recovery. So these CBD gummies that I've been taking are actually from Naked Warrior. It's Naked Warrior Recovery is the name of the whole company. It's awesome. We're gonna have Will Branham, who actually started this. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL. He's coming up as a guest real soon. And not only are we going to talk about some leadership topics, but we're also going to talk about the importance of recovery and the importance of being able to utilize certain things that are going to help you optimize your recovery. Now, I am a huge believer in hemp. I am not a believer in marijuana per se. So even though they are related, and his products, here's the thing. I told him, I said, dude, I can't have any THC in any of my CBD gummies. He goes, oh, that's convenient because we don't have any at all. And I'm like, I'm sold. Because, there's nothing worse than having the HR lady pop negative, pop positive on a drug screen, right? That's not good. And not to mention, I've got some other business opportunities. I don't want THC in my system for my own benefit. I just don't want it. And so therefore, I'm very particular about making sure that if I take a quality CBD product, which you have to take a quality product, that you want to make sure, especially in our profession, that there's no THC. So his products over at Naked Warrior Recovery are, in fact, they're verified. And what's really great is it's broad spectrum CBD, which means that the product is not just sprayed on with CBD. It's actually incorporated into the product itself. And not to mention, being a veteran-based business, the original frogmen were once called Naked Warriors, and so therefore it goes back to the heritage. So, like I said, Will's going to be joining us in an upcoming podcast. You guys are welcome to take advantage of trying Naked Warrior Recovery's products and get a 20% discount by going to www.nw-recovery.com, and then you can put in a code called NakedHR, and you can go ahead and start making your change. But I can tell you right now, it's just amazing how my recovery is doing and how my sleep is doing incredibly well, and my performance throughout the day. It's been a nice progressive game changer for me. So I strongly encourage you to take that moment, take that step back, and look at one thing that you can do for yourself. And I'm going to tell you what I've been doing since I made this commitment to myself in April. The very first thing that I did is I got rid of sugar and I got rid of refined carbohydrates. The second thing that I did is I got rid of soda. And I have to tell you, I am a mega fan of A&W Diet Root Beer. It is the one that is the thing that I love the most. Literally my mouth is like watering just thinking about it. And I got rid of that. I started walking. And now that I've got, the puppy with Nakoa, I've been walking him more, and I spend more time with him, keeping him active, which ultimately keeps me active. He wakes me up at 5 a.m. We now go outside first thing in the morning. I have my cup of coffee, and that's my downtime to be able to look at what's going on for the day, look what's going on for the week, to strategize, to plan. Sometimes I even just do something for myself, like read. But nonetheless, it's my time. I don't have any interruptions. He's out playing and eating bark and doing whatever it is that he's doing, right? So it's a really great opportunity for you to take that step back to figure out what small changes can you make. I'm also going to tell you about the change that I made to my eating. Now, I don't get any benefit for doing this, but I actually changed, and I have now replaced 1 to 2 of my meals a day with a greens product, and I'm going to tell you guys about that coming up in the future, and we're going to wind up getting Mitch on, who's going to talk about it as well. So there you go. Think about what you can do to go ahead and make changes for yourself for the better and invest in your well-being in your future. So you guys know that I love your HR questions, and you feel free to go ahead and submit your question on the bestpractices.work website by clicking on the podcast link from the menu, and down towards the bottom of the podcast page, you'll find a submission form for you to go ahead and post your question, which I may read and answer on an upcoming episode. You can also hit me up on any of the social channels that I'm on. So today's question is, I have an employee who usually reports sick about 2 days per month, but he's a good worker. Should I fire him? So this is one of those things where it's not just an easy yes or no answer, because as we know in HR, there's many shades of gray. There's a lot of layers to what we do, and success never comes in a straight line. When you have somebody that's calling out in frequency like this, you got to look at this as a couple of things. So first and foremost, if they're earning accrued time off, they can take that time off as they, as they need to. That's the reason why the benefit is there. So this is going to feel a little bit like a double-edged sword. However, if you see patterns, it's perfectly okay to sit down with this individual and sit there and say, hey, listen, I noticed that 2 to 3 times a month you are calling in sick. And, you have your accrued time to use. That's totally up to you. But I need to make sure that you're okay. And, is there anything that I can do to help? And then you just sit back and let silence be your friend. Okay? If he's a good employee, he is probably going to share with you what's going on. But you also want to be, here's where the double-edged sword really comes in, is that whatever he tells you, understand that you could be lining yourself up to get access to information that protects him either under American with Disabilities Act or some form of discriminate, or like Title VII under disabilities, right? So that's why I always say, is there anything that we can do to help you? And help him understand that frequent call-ins tend to make not getting what needs to be done. That's not how you want to lead it. You want to lead it with, is there something I can do to help you out? And if he says no, he says, I have a condition that sometimes it needs for me to go ahead and take time off. You may really have to probably do that as an accommodation. If it's somebody else in his family and his household that he needs to take time off to care for, like a child. I mean, my sister, for instance, has always gotten, she always got ear infection. She always got strep throat. She was literally out of school at least once a month. And the frequency of her getting sick was very, very high. And just some people just don't have strong immune systems, all right? So should you fire him? No, I would definitely have the conversation with him. Learn about how you can support him. If he's a good employee, why would you want to get rid of that? I mean, there's always a workaround. There's always a solution to everything. But just remember that what you do for one, you do for all. So if you have somebody who's not a really great employee and is taking 2 days off a month, you remember that if you're accommodating one person and somebody else has a similar situation and they're not your fan favorite, what you do for one, you do for all. So don't get yourself in a situation where you could actually inadvertently put yourself in a position where you could be, have a finger pointed at you for, discrimination or, favoritism or anything like that. Those are just headaches. All right. So our coaching program, we've got our next session coming up, and it is an awesome time to come together, sit at the table. Our community of dedicated HR pros over in the next gen women in HR community. We're getting together, we're helping each other out, we're finding ways to connect, we're finding ways to help each other source those answers and those questions. And we're having real conversations with real people. So I invite you to come and join our monthly coaching program. We have really great information that comes out of it, great conversations. Same thing with the Next Gen Women in HR community. It's awesome. We're growing. We're well over 180 members strong now. We're knocking on 200, and we're not even a whole year old just yet. So I invite you to come in and jump in and join the conversation. Now, if you'd like to connect with me out in the virtual world, you are welcome to do so. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook in 2 places, at Best Practices in HR, and that's where I give some general updates. You can also find me again on Instagram and Facebook at Brenda the HR Lady, where I share more about what I'm up to, a little bit more on a personal level, and I usually post something every day there. And if you'd like to connect with me professionally, you can find me on LinkedIn just by typing in my name, Brenda Neckbottle, Neck, V as in Victor, ATAL. Over on YouTube, I've been building a library of videos, and you can find me again using my name, and I also co-host another show called The Real HR Show with the evil HR lady, Suzanne Lucas herself. And lastly, you can jump on the website at bestpractices.org, where you can read up on the news updates that I called out earlier in today's episode, which is something that I decided to add for this year. So you can just simply visit bestpractices.org, click on the podcast link, and then you can get this week's articles. Also, while you're there, click connect, and at the top of the page, get my best practices delivered directly to your inbox. So folks, I'd like to thank you again for joining me for another week. This has been awesome. We've got, man, I can't believe we're already starting to wind down the year. Holy cow. It just blows my mind. And we've got all sorts of other really, really great topics coming down. We've got, like I said, Will Branham's coming up soon. We're going to be talking about how to do it all and take care of you as an HR pro. We've got Jody Harris coming on from Cisco. We're going to be talking about executing your life and career strategy with grit as an HR pro. We've also got Miri Rodriguez coming up next month in October, building a great internship program in 2021. She's with Microsoft. So we've got some pretty cool topics coming down the pike, and can't wait till you guys hear what is going on. So, all right, guys, listen, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will catch you next week. Have a good one.